Hello, my friends, it's Dani, and welcome back to week 7 in our 10-week clean and delicious intuitive eating series. I cannot believe we're already at week 7, but here we are. And this week I have a fantastic topic for you. We're going to be chatting all about how to cope with feelings without turning to food. And I know that so many of you can relate to this. It's definitely a hot topic. I personally think this is something that should be taught in elementary schools. Not so much the food part, but certainly the how to cope with feelings part. I think many people walk around thinking that we are supposed to feel happy all the time. And anytime we're not feeling happy, something has gone terribly wrong, which could not be further from the truth. We're not supposed to feel happy all the time. We have lots of different emotions, and learning how to recognize them and interpret them and be with them is really a very powerful practice. Now, if you missed the first 6 weeks of the series, I'm going to go ahead and link to them all down in the description box below. I personally recommend going back and watching all of them because all of these principles tend to play off one another. So watching the entire series is definitely going to be to your benefit. So let's chat about food and feelings, shall we? Emotional eating has a lot of different layers to it, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, although it does get a very bad rap. But technically, there's a lot of different ways that we can eat emotionally, right? So for instance, if it's somebody's birthday and you decide to have a piece of birthday cake at the party, this is technically emotional eating, right? Usually we're not hungry per se, but we're eating the cake to celebrate. Or perhaps you want to go to an ice cream store with your kids in the summer and get an ice cream cone, right? Most of the time we're not getting ice cream because we're hungry, right? But we're partaking because the ice cream is delicious and we want to be a part of this moment of connection and togetherness with our family. Other times we may eat emotionally to help us cope with our feelings, right? So we might consciously or unconsciously eat to help us distract ourselves, comfort ourselves, or numb ourselves from uncomfortable emotions. And I do think it's very important to note that uncomfortable emotions do not only have to be the negative emotions or what we call the bad emotions, right? I've noticed in myself that I tend to want to take the edge off of any feeling that's really big, right? So it can be a really big positive emotion, or it can certainly be a negative emotion, but it's not always the negative emotion. So it's just something to be aware of. And here's the thing, food is love. I agree with that statement in my own personal opinion. And sometimes food can be a distraction, and sometimes food can be a reward, and sometimes food can be comfort, and that is perfectly fine. But what we want to be careful of is that it is not our only source of helping to ease and manage and cope with our emotions. Sometimes it's going to be okay, and other times you're going to want to use other techniques. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to learn to deal with the source of the emotion, right? We have to understand what's going on for us and then tend to that need, right? Certainly, we can have some food to comfort us or distract us or numb us out for a moment, but at the end of the day, that doesn't actually solve anything. It doesn't change anything, right? Except for maybe just that short, brief moment while you're eating it. But then once you're done eating it, that emotion is still going to be there waiting for you. And then what tends to happen is we create this negative spin cycle around emotional eating, right? So say some type of uncomfortable emotion arises, and then you turn to food to help cope with that emotion. What happens after you're done eating oftentimes is then we feel guilt or shame about eating the food, maybe eating too much food or just eating when we're not hungry. And then that guilt and shame creates more negative emotion, which then creates a desire to eat more food to help soothe that negative emotion. And it's a very negative cycle that spins and spins and spins. And the thing is, then we think that our problem is food and overeating and eating when we're not hungry. And we become really removed from the initial cause of what was happening in the first place. So while turning to food emotionally sometimes can feel helpful, if it is your only source of dealing with or coping with emotions, ultimately what happens is you create more of a divide from yourself and the things that you're really wanting and the things that you're really needing, right? We have to remember that our emotions are like our internal guidance system. Our emotions have a lot of information for us. There's a lot of wisdom in our emotions. So learning to pay attention to them and learning how to take care of ourselves and those emotions is a super powerful practice. And again, I want to reiterate for you guys that you are not supposed to feel happy all of the time. So if you find yourself thinking that there's a problem because maybe you're not feeling happy all the time, just know you're not supposed to. And that's one of the biggest lies that we're kind of fed through advertising in the media, etc. And I love that Brene Brown always says, she says that we can only feel as good as we allow ourselves to feel bad, right? We can only go as high as we're willing to feel low. So allowing yourself to feel the totality of all of the emotions that come with life, that is really where the magic lives. So when it comes to emotional eating, the very first thing that I want you to acknowledge for yourself is that this is not self-sabotage. This is you trying to do the best that you can to show up and take care of yourself in any given moment, right? Because here's the truth about, eating to help with emotions is that in the moment, it works very well, right? If it was not for the byproduct of gaining extra weight and or feeling physical discomfort, eating to help comfort ourselves or distract ourselves or numb out certain feelings is quite the brilliant strategy, right? But the thing is it only works for a moment, and then as soon as that moment is over, we still have to deal with the root cause of whatever it is that's going on for us. So I want you to grab a pen and paper, and I want you to write out all of the pros of emotional eating. Really think about all of the benefits. How has eating emotionally served you in your life, right? Perhaps it was comforting to you. Perhaps it made you feel like you had somewhere to turn. Perhaps it made you feel better in a moment. Whatever it is, I want you to really just write out all of the things, all of the ways that emotional eating has actually served you. Then I want you to write a list of all of the cons of emotional eating, right? So all of the ways that it's affected you negatively. So maybe it's caused you physical discomfort. Maybe it's created a sense of isolation for you. Maybe it's put you into hiding. What are all of the ways that eating emotionally has not served you? I want you to really think about that and then write those out as well. And then notice for yourself, do your pros outweigh your cons, or do your cons outweigh your pros, right? Does emotional eating really serve you in the big picture, and how much of it do you want to keep in your life, right? Because I do think it's important to note that sometimes we just want a little something in the form of food to help handle emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how often do you want to be doing that? And do you want other tools to help you deal and cope with emotions in other ways? And then if you notice that you're ready to start exploring other ways to cope with and deal with emotions and feelings, then maybe start to practice this little practice, right? So step one, you literally just want to pause and notice. Pause and notice that there's some type of feeling or emotion that is going through your body and catching your attention, right? Then the next thing you want to do is try to identify that emotion. Is it loneliness? Is it sadness? Is it excitement? Is it frustration? Is it anger? Is it eagerness? I mean, there are so many different types of emotions, and you can probably just Google like a list of emotions, because sometimes it helps to actually see them on a piece of paper in case you can't put a word to it, right? So try to identify whatever the feeling is for yourself. And then you want to ask yourself, what do I need to do to deal with my current feelings? How can I fulfill this need without using food, right? Because we have to remember, in the long run, anything other than physical hunger, food can't actually take care of, right? So just remind yourself that food is not going to fix this, and what is it that I'm actually wanting or needing in this moment, right? And just be really easy with yourself. Be very kind and gentle and patient and curious, because like everything else we've been learning in this intuitive eating series, this is all a process and it's all a practice. So give yourself permission to do just that. Give yourself permission to practice and then practice and then practice again, right? Give yourself permission to attempt to do it differently and not do it differently, and don't use it as a reason to stop trying, right? Sometimes we just have to set our intentions to continuously show up for ourselves, no matter how many times we fall off the horse or how many times we don't get it the way we want it to be, right? And just remind ourselves that we are works in progress, and all of this is an ongoing practice. You may have been turning emotionally to food for many, many, many years. And just like you wouldn't expect to get up off of the couch and go run a marathon, you shouldn't expect that you're just gonna give this a go one time and have it all figured out, right? So just keep that in mind as you approach any of the principles that we're covering in this 10-week series, because that, my friend, is going to be the key to creating any type of change for yourself. So as always, I am super excited to hear your thoughts, your questions, your aha moments, your experiences with food and eating and emotions. So please do come on down to the comment section below and share. And if you haven't already, please share this series with anybody else in your life who you think could benefit from this 10-week series. I know for me, all of this is like life-changing information for anybody who has ever struggled with food, diet, or body. I highly encourage you to pass all of this goodness along to them as well. Next week, we will be meeting back again on Tuesday for week 8, and we're gonna be talking all about respecting our bodies, which is also another fabulous topic. So I can't wait to chat with you about that. And until then, I hope you guys have a lovely week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dani Spies, and I will see you back here next time with some more food for thought. Cheers.